Strange things are happening with water across the world, and it's not just the Euphrates River drying up as prophesied in Revelation 16:12, but from China to America, we are witnessing water events from famines and droughts to people's water being cut off. I'll get into a few of these things going on and the Bible prophecy in correlation with them. Like I mentioned and have been covering lately, the Euphrates River is beginning to dry up, such as prophesied in Revelation 16:12. We're seeing that as well as the Tigris River drying up from damming and droughts in the region. But China is also experiencing extreme droughts, with some of its biggest rivers such as the Jialing River and the Yangtze River drying up. And it's said this is due to record low rainfall and extreme heat in the region, and that the drought in areas of China is causing some of the reservoirs to be at half of what it's used to. And in some provinces of China, up to 80% of its electricity comes from hydropower. So Iraq, China, and the United States are regions of the world dealing with serious drought. Iraq is said to be within a millennial drought, a drought that's so bad it comes along every 1,000 years. Lake Sawa, which is the largest lake in Iraq, has dried up completely for the first time in thousands of years. The rivers in the region have shriveled into brooks, and the supply of groundwater in many of the aquifers has been completely exhausted. A report by the Media Line says that Iraq faces acute water shortage. I'll get into the Bible prophecy aspect of this in a minute, because Bible prophecy does tell us about things that will be going on with water, food, and famines within the end times. But first, two more things to mention is Mississippi. Currently, the capital city in Mississippi is coping with a water crisis after a treatment plant broke down, leaving thousands without drinkable water. The governor declared a state of emergency and asked the National Guard to help distribute water to Jackson's 180,000 residents and businesses. So that's a large amount of people who are without water. Just more signs of societal breakdown and system breakdown. I mean, our society is run off of such a very complex system of things that are all working together. If one of these things shuts down, it makes a massive impact on the rest of the society. Just like grocery stores and trucks, if the trucks stop running and the grocery stores are out of food, there's about 3 days worth of food in any average grocery store, and that's without people panic buying. Also worth pointing out is that Lake Mead water level forecast shows Point Deadpool could start closing in, and Deadpool is the level when the water in a reservoir can no longer flow downstream from the dam. For Lake Mead, this level is at 895 feet. As of September 1st, the lake's level was at 1,044 feet, so not too far off from that Deadpool level. When Jesus talks about the Great Tribulation in Matthew 24, which I believe Matthew 24 is a twofold prophecy, where Jesus was talking to his disciples about the time that they were about to go through, as well as Jesus was also giving prophecy about a time that would come in the far off future, the Great Tribulation. But we can know for sure that not all of Matthew 24 is something that happened in the past, because it talks about Jesus's return and mentions that it will be such great tribulation such as the world has never seen. And within that prophecy, we know that there's wars and rumors of wars, as well as famines and pestilence. Now, most famines come from really water shortage or extreme weather or extreme natural events such as locust infestation. But in reference to this video, we know that there will most likely be droughts worldwide, and that this will lead to famine. And one reason prophetically that we can also know this is because of Revelation chapter 6 verses 5 through 6, which says, "And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, 'Come and see.' And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he who sat on the horse had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, 'A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see that thou hurt not the oil and the wine.'" Now, the original word used for penny is denarius, and we can know that that was a day's wages, because in another verse in Matthew 20 verses 2 through 9, in the parable that Jesus told, tells us that the workers who worked for a full day's pay, an 8-hour shift, was the same word, denarius or penny. So a measure of wheat for a penny and a measure of barley for a penny, or a measure of wheat for a day's wages, a measure of barley for a day's wages. And then when you also look up the Greek word for measure, which is chonix, probably pronounced wrong, but that's the equivalent of a dry quart, which is enough to make about 1.5 loaves of 1 pound bread, or the average amount of bread a person living in the Roman Empire at that time ate per day. So with those facts brought into Revelation 6, we can know that in the end times, and we're not at the opening of the seals yet at this part of Revelation, but I don't think it's just going to happen overnight. I think we're slowly going to move our way into the times of Revelation, and then one day we will get to the point where the seals are opened, and we'll be at the point where, the black horse is here on the scene, and it will cost a day's wages for a loaf of bread. We also know later in Revelation 16, verse 4, that the angel will pour out his bowl into the rivers and the springs of water, and they will be turned to blood. This is the point in Revelation when it's the end of everything. So rivers are turned to blood, waters and fresh water is turned bitter by wormwood, and just the end of all things is coming, and so we can soon have a new heaven and a new earth. And just a common sense aspect of this, something I don't understand, is how they're always talking about the oceans that are rising, yet the ocean I've gone to my whole life doesn't look like it's rising. It still breaks at the exact same place, at the exact same point on the piers and on the rocks that it has my entire life, but that's a different story. Why don't these people just start purifying the ocean water? I mean, if the oceans are rising and it's such a threat, and yet the majority of Earth is covered in ocean water, why don't we just start purifying ocean water and using that? Even if we had to pump it in through pipelines, it'd still be better than not having water. So I've always found it kind of funny when people talk about water shortages and stuff, because the majority of Earth is made of water. But droughts are real and people live inland and all this stuff. But you'd imagine with innovation that we would want to try to focus our efforts on getting the ocean water turned pure, moved inland to regions of the world. And, people in, say, Africa who don't have fresh water, we live on water. Let's move some of that water inland. But I guess probably before we got to that point of human innovation, we will just probably be in the full-on time of Revelation, because what we're seeing worldwide, again, from China to the United States and Iraq and all around the world, we're seeing droughts in regions as like in America and California where much food is grown, and then other regions in China as well as in America are seeing extreme flooding. So it's like things are totally turning around in strange ways. The earth is changing, and I don't believe it's due to human beings and what we're doing. It's due to God and the times that we're heading into. These are just a few of the current events going on surrounding with water, but it's really happening all over. I mean, if you just type rivers drying up or lakes drying up, it's really happening across the entire world. In such areas as Kenya, they're talking of lakes drying up, but especially in desert regions and regions where population growth is through the roof, such as in Nevada and California, we are seeing more people affected by this. And again, as we know, in the end times, there will be droughts, there will be famines. So maybe this is just the beginning of sorrows mentioned in Matthew 24 by Jesus, saying that these things must come to pass first, but the end is not yet. Put your faith and trust in Jesus, no fear, because he will guide his children through the times we live through, no matter what they are. He always has, he always will. So don't fear, don't worry. God's got a plan for our lives when we are fully in Christ. Thanks for watching, and God bless.